Hi, this is Gary Nicol, co-author of The Lost Art of the Short Game, and this is Golf Smarter number 860.
This is Golf Smarter.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Gary.
I'm delighted to be back and great to see you again, Fred.
Great to see you again as well. We really enjoy having you. I guess this is kind of part 2 about the book, The Lost Art of the Short Game, because we already had Carl on the show.
Sure, yes.
Talking about, but it's an interesting collaboration between the two of you because he's focused more on the mental side of the game, and you are a coach, not just a swing mechanics coach, but you coach European tour players.
Carl and I both set out in our professional careers. Obviously, we wanted to be superstar golfers, but that didn't quite pan out as planned. But and we both, I think, set out as swing instructors, as you would call them nowadays. But soon learned that wasn't necessarily the best way forward. And we kind of passed on the stuff that didn't work for us to the people we were then coaching, which again wasn't terribly smart. This is Golf Smarter. That wasn't very smart at all. So we both kind of looked into various aspects of the game and how to get better as coaches, how we can expand our own knowledge and how that can be passed on to our students. So, yeah, Carl's been, as you've been a pioneer in the podcasting world, Carl's been a bit of a pioneer in the golf performance side of things, certainly in the UK and beyond. And we've known each other a long time. So the collaboration kind of made sense because while I was coming at it from a slightly more technical background, but not entirely technical, because I learned long time ago there's a lot more to golf than swinging a golf club. I mean, if it was all about who's got the prettiest golf swing on tour, there'd only be two. Adam Scott would probably win most weeks, right?
Right, exactly.
But it doesn't work like that. There's so much more to it. And I've always been fascinated by looking into and speaking to various players and asking them what worked for them. I worked with numerous Ryder Cup players over the years, and no two guys have said, well, it's because my backswing, when I get it right, that's when I must start to play my best. You can play okay when that happens, but you don't play your best. You don't win tournaments because you got a good backswing. And it really is all down to mindset and mentality. I mean, there are obviously physical skills required, but what separates the great from the good is definitely what happens between this year and that year. So much, so important. But I think, unfortunately, it's largely overlooked because we'd rather dig it out the dirt like they did in the old days, or thought they were doing in the old days.
Do you know that this whole podcast was started with the idea of a strong mental game and course management as being a way to lower scores versus just swing mechanics.
Sure.
And I'm now, after 17 years of these kind of conversations, I'm starting to realize that when, we've all talked about the golf between the ears part, but Let me ask you this. Golf between the ears, at what point of your round? Is it while you're swinging the club, or is it in between shots?
I think it actually starts long before you get to the golf course.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, well, if you're waiting until you get to the parking lot before you start tuning into what you're doing, you're probably a little bit behind schedule.
Wow.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So many. I mean, in our second book, The Lost Art of Playing Golf, we talked about, Carl and I discussed at great lengths whether we should mention gratitude. And we decided we were going to, and then we thought,
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to use it, may as well put it right at the very front. So it was the opening chapter. And, just waking up as, those of us who are fortunate to play golf, we probably wake up in a nice warm bed. We go for a nice hot shower. We put on clean clothes. We have a nice breakfast. We drive a car to the golf course. Golf courses tend not to be in shitty parts of town, right? So they're generally in nice areas, nice environments. So if you're just grateful for the opportunity to actually play golf in the first place, I think you're one step ahead of most.
Wow.
And then once you get there, and you realize what has actually happened in order for the course to be set up for you and I and for whoever else is playing to play golf, then, the greenkeeping fairies don't come in overnight and just sprinkle some magic dust on the place to make it look good. There's a lot of hard work goes into that before we even get there. Yeah, as soon as we hit the shot offline and we duff a chip or miss a putt, the whole world's going to end.
Yeah.
So I think we need to start thinking about long before we actually pull on our shoes and our glove and head to the first tee.
Excellent point. Now we're at the first tee. So I'll ask my
Yeah.
question again. Are we thinking
Okay.
about this stuff? Is the mental game getting in the way while we're hitting the ball? Or is it in between shots when we're beating
Well, yeah,
ourselves
I
up
guess it depends
after
on
a
what
three
you.
putt, right?
Yeah, it depends what you class as the mental game. I think
Hmm.
every golf shot is by definition unique
Right.
because it happens at a unique moment in time. What happened last Thursday really shouldn't determine what's going to happen today or tomorrow or the 12th hole or the first hole or the 14th hole. Really shouldn't make any difference. Each shot, as I say, is unique, and we need to treat it as such. So I've long been of the belief that every shot has three component parts: what you do before in the preparation, what you do during the shot, the action, and then what you do after the reaction. So I guess you could call it power golf: preparation, action, reaction. The things that we think about are, well, the thing we spend most of our time on is the execution, the action. The only bit we really can't control. The two parts of every golf shot we can control is what we do beforehand. We can exercise an element of control over what happens beforehand, and we can definitely determine how we react, how we choose to react, although most of our reactions are not helpful. But no one really talks about the before, the after. If you go on YouTube or whatever, any of the social channels, you'll see so many people comparing swings and position this and position that. And I'm not saying that the golf swing isn't important. Clearly it is, or golf technique, whatever you want to call it. But it's definitely not your first port of call. Every movement we make is organized in the control center called our brain. And if we don't pay attention to what our brain's doing, then it's a complete waste of time just working on your golf swing. All this talk we've heard so many times over so many years about muscle memory, which doesn't exist. There's only one part of your brain is capable of storing memory, and that's your brain. So if you think that doing 10,000 reps, hitting 10,000 balls in the driving range is going to make you a far better golfer, then yeah, I wish you well. It's going to be a bit of a challenge. What you
Well,
can do is learn a
especially
motor
if you're
pattern.
I was going to say, especially if you're hitting those 10,000 balls, but only 100 of them are with a teacher
Yes, exactly.
or getting feedback of any kind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the feedback we often provide ourselves is a judgment to
Subjective.
where the ball went.
Right.
But
It's
we've
your
got the
ball
benefit
flight.
of seeing where the ball went, because once it goes a bit left or a bit right or a bit higher, a bit low, we then say it was too far left. That was a terrible shot. Too far right. Okay, that was another terrible shot. Well, good or bad is an opinion. Long, short, left or right is a fact. I'm much happier dealing in facts than opinions, because the journey back from terrible to good is quite a long, arduous journey. But the journey from 5 yards short and right to the middle of the green is a much shorter journey, and it's a much more achievable journey to get to the destination you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one thing I'm really big on is how we talk to ourselves and about ourselves. And we mentioned that in the lost art of the short game. It's interesting. I had actually an old school friend came for a golf lesson today. I haven't seen him for quite some time, decades rather than years.
Mm.
And he hit a couple of shots. Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. Then he hit a couple of really, really fantastic shots. That's a great shot, Dave. I'm impressed with that. He said, yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I said, what would you say if I had hit that shot? He said, oh God, that'd be impressive. I said, but it's okay when you hit one to say it was all right. Yeah, well, didn't quite catch it. Didn't quite get it out the middle. I said, okay, let's flip the coin here. Let's turn things around a little bit. I'm just going to let you hit another couple of shots. I'm going to choose a target for you. You tell me what kind of shot you're going to hit. You picture the shot. You describe the shot to me in as much detail as you can, and see what happens. So he hit one. He took a 6-iron, and he said, "Right, I'm going to hit a nice high draw here towards that flag down there on the range." Okay, perfect. And he hit it, and it finished maybe 5-6 yards left of his intended target, which is about 180 yards away, 185 yards away.
Impressive.
Yeah. And I said, "Yeah, you pulled that one a bit, didn't you?" He said, "Yeah, it did."
How
Could you
encouraging
not
of
be?
you.
Well, exactly. But the reason for saying that was that's how he speaks to himself.
Right.
And he didn't really like it coming from me. So why would it be okay to come from yourself?
Right.
I often ask people I'm working with, who's the person you speak most to in your life? They say, my husband, my wife, my son, my daughter, whatever. No, yourself. We speak to ourselves. The internal chat we have is we speak to ourselves more than anyone else.
Sure.
And unfortunately, we quite often listen to ourselves more than anyone else. So if you keep telling yourself after every shot you hit, "Oh, I didn't quite catch that, it's a bit low in the face," it's no different to your eye saying something to them. So for example, let's say you and I are playing golf on a Sunday morning, Fred. You had a great drive down the middle of the fairway on the first, and I say, "Great shot, good tee shot, Fred. Well, good drive, well done." You might well say, excuse me, because we're always going to be our own harshest critics. "Yeah, it's a little bit low in the face, a little bit out the heel, didn't quite get it." Okay. But if I said that to you and kept saying that to you after every shot you hit, how would you feel? Not great. So we really need to be a lot kinder to ourselves in life in general, but especially on the golf course. I
Absolutely.
liken it to water dripping on a stone. Eventually, all these drip, 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 it's going to erode and it's going to rot away.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm going to take
So,
a quick time out. We'll be right back and continue this conversation with Gary Nicol right after this. Gary, I have a playing partner that I play with regularly, and when he makes a bad shot, and I think
he wants the
this is
world to know.
well, he yells at himself, and it's like there's so many players that like fill
Yeah.
in the blank here. Oh, Gary, that was so stupid of you. Oh, and I think it was my conversation with Carl, and he's like, I just want to say to him next time, you don't talk to me that way.
No,
You don't talk. I'm
no.
sure you don't talk to your wife that. Why do you talk to yourself that
Yeah.
way?
Yeah. If we spoke to anyone else the way we speak to ourselves on the golf course, we'd have no family or friends left. Seriously, we'd live a very lonely existence, right?
Yes.
No one
Oh,
else would tolerate it.
right, right.
It's crazy.
And
And
what
if
good
you
does it
keep,
do you when you
it's
yell at
talk
yourself like
about
that?
the thinker and the prover, what the thinker thinks the prover aims to prove. "Oh, I knew he was going to hit that bad shot. I knew he was going to do that.
Oh, my
I'm
favorite. I
terrible."
knew
It's
that
like
was
the
going to
short game
happen.
in particular. I've got this shot over a bunker. I'm not very good at these. So guess what?
It's going to
The
happen.
story we tell ourselves, we tend to live out. So I always chunk these in the bunker. I always knife them and hit them in the face of the bunker. And oh God, hate this shot, hate this shot. In order to be any good at anything, you've got to fall in love with it. You've got to want to do it.
Right.
I was very fortunate as a young man, as a young assistant professional in Scotland. One day, this guy came into the pro shop, a South African guy, and he said, "Are any of the pros available to play this morning? We're a man short. Well, someone's cancelled ours." So I think I was the head assistant at the time. So I pulled rank and said, "Yep, I'll do it. I'll play." I have someone else in the shop to look after all the other stuff. Went out onto the tee, didn't have a chance to warm up, didn't have the chance to do anything. I was literally tying my shoelaces as I ran onto the first tee. And there was another South African there on the first tee, and his name was Gary Player, which I wasn't ready for. And I remember the first hole was a par 5. I'd hit 2 woods, actual woods, wooden woods, as they used to be back in the
Right.
day. This is back in the late 80s, mid to late 80s. And I was in a greenside bunker at about a 40-yard bunker shot. I was just about to hit my shot when Mr. Player said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to play a bunker shot." He said, "What club have you got?" I said, "I got my sand iron." He said, "No, no, no, use your pitching wedge." I said, "Sand iron's not going to get there." I said, "Okay, I'm going to listen to you because you're renowned as one of the best bunker players ever." And he dropped a ball beside mine, grabbed my pitching wedge, not his, proceeded to show me how to play this shot, hit it about 18 inches, 2 feet or something. Said, "That's how you play a 40-yard bunker shot." Okay. So from then on, I wasn't saying I'm not going to say I was aiming at bunkers, but if it did go in them, I just wanted to pick his brains and find out more. How do I play this one? How do I play that one? And because no one told me that bunker shots were difficult when I was a kid, my late father used to say, "Don't worry about going in bunkers. The only shot in golf you don't actually have to hit the ball. They're easy." So I
Oh,
had no
wow.
fear.
Wow.
So, but I'd never really talked myself out of being a good bunker player. And to this day, I still think I'm a pretty good bunker player because I've never, okay, yeah, I have the odd bad experience, you get the odd bad shot, but I never had this kind of history of fear of the short game or bunkers because that's what you practice when you were a kid. We didn't
Well,
really have a driving
your
range
dad is a
as
very
such on the
smart
golf
man.
course where I was a member, but we had a chipping green, a bunker, and a putting green. So guess what? We were all pretty decent as 15, 16, 17-year-olds round about the greens. But again, it's perhaps not as sexy as standing on the range trying to hit 300-yard drives, which we're probably not capable of anyway. But we could all get better round about the greens. You don't have to be the world's strongest man to get it up and down from all sorts of situations round about the greens. You just need to watch any kind of broadcast, any kind of golf on TV. All these players, the girls, the guys, their short games are spectacular. That didn't happen by accident. They've figured out, they've experimented, they've explored the best way to play a variety of different shots, which is what we advocate and encourage people to do. Explore, experiment. If it doesn't work with this club, try another one. Try something else. Try something different. Don't just automatically reach for your lob wedge because you missed a green.
Right.
Be
Yeah.
creative.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you hear somebody say something like, "Oh, I always hit it in the bunker. I always hit it in the water here,"
Yep,
my first question is, why are you hitting with the same club then? Why don't you just try a different
exactly.
club? Why don't you,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, oh, because if I hit it pure, then I'll clear it. Then I'll be fine. Well,
yeah.
how often does that happen? Right? And
Exactly. I remember
especially,
working at a golf club years ago. Sorry, where the captain, who wasn't quite as good as he thought he was, came into the shop one day and he said, "Right, okay, I've had enough. But you're going to have to do something about that bunker in the middle of the 14th fairway because every time I play, I always hit my drive in there." I said, "Right, okay. You do realize you could hit a 3-wood off the tee?" "Yeah, but then it'll be further back from the green." I said, "Yeah, but you wouldn't be in the bunker." "But I want to hit driver off that tee." I said, "Well, if you want to hit driver off the tee, hit it left or right of the bunker." "But I always hit it in the bunker." I said, "Well, so you want us to fill that in just because you can't hit it anywhere but the bunker?" Yeah, okay. Just listen to yourself for a minute.
play from a different tee.
Exactly.
Why are you playing the back tees? Stop
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hit a 4-iron.
Right.
Okay, you've got a 5-iron left for your second shot, but you've got a better chance of hitting the green with a 5-iron from the fairway than you do from a deep, 6-foot deep bunker. It's too
Right.
deep. It shouldn't be there anyway. Okay. Yeah. Just think about that for a second. astonishing what you hear.
Go buy
But
your own
it
golf
gives you a
course.
great insight into how people think and how people see the game.
Right. Right.
It really is. Just okay, that doesn't work for you, so let's try something else. So if you always chunk or thin your shots round about the green with your lob wedge, perhaps there's a message there. Either you go learn how to use it properly, which we talk about in the Lost Art of the Short Game, is learning how to use your tools, learning how to apply the back edge of the sole properly. We talk about surfing the turf, learning how to get the back edge to surf across the top of the turf, glide across the turf and gather the ball on the way past. But so many people have flawed concepts of how to use the tools. In fact, I don't even think they pay much attention to learning how to use the tools. If
Okay.
you were a carpenter, you've got to learn how to use a hammer, a saw, a chisel, all sorts of things. If you're playing baseball, you learn how to use the bat, right? You're playing tennis, you learn how to use a racket. You're playing squash, you learn how to use a racket. But I don't think golfers kind of get or they don't really understand that golf's about learning how to. We've got 14 different tools in our bags, all designed to do different jobs. So learn how
Right.
to
But a
use them.
baseball player who has to learn how to use his bat,
Mm,
if he replaces the bat, he goes to the dugout and gets another bat of the exact same thing. I mean, he's
yes.
getting another 33-inch bat, right?
Yeah.
30 ounce, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But a golfer puts a club away, there's still multiple choices,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
so I can see
Yeah.
why that would get in your head as well.
Yeah. But again, if you don't practice or train these shots, don't be surprised if you're not very good at them on the golf course.
Right.
A prime example, we had a visit from Rudy Duran, who was Tiger's first ever golf coach, he was doing a junior school with a colleague of mine at Archerfield with Ollie Morton. And I was speaking to Rudy the other day, and he said, "It's a beautiful place you got here, great facilities." He said, "But as I drove in this morning, you got two fantastic short game areas with bunkers, with chipping greens, with putting greens. You've got all sorts of fantastic facilities. Not a soul on them. Everyone's on the driving range, hitting drivers before they go out to play. Not one person," which was quite interesting that someone who had only been there 2 or 3 times picked up on. They said, "Every time I come here, I don't see anyone in the short game areas working on the short game. Yet they'll be the first to complain in the clubhouse after the round that the short game was terrible." Think about it. If it doesn't work for you, if you don't put the work in, you can't really expect miraculous results.
Right.
And it
But I
should be
saw him
fun.
do it on TV.
You know,
I saw him do it on TV. How come I can't do that?
exactly. Yeah. And he's about the same height as me. He's no different to me. He's got 2 hands, 2 feet, all the rest of it.
It's
Yeah, but these
because
guys will spend a large chunk of their practice training time working on trying to create and learn how to play different shots because they know, and it varies week to week, perhaps not so much in the US, but certainly in Europe, the conditions change from week to week. If you watch the Open Championship at the old course at St Andrews this year on TV, I mean, it was like playing on a motorway. The ground was so firm and so hard that these guys had to get creative very, very quickly, or they were going to get left in the wake of the leaders. And Cam Smith, who won, I think the up and down he made on the 17th when he putted round the edge of the road hole bunker up to 12 feet, he knew that he could have played that shot with about 4 or 5 different clubs. But he figured the smartest way, because I'm sure he'd done it in a practice round. I'm sure he tried that in a practice round because he knew at some point there was a potential possibility he's going to be left with that kind of shot. So these guys are smart. These guys think about their practice rounds are learning about, they know the golf courses. If they played a couple of times or played in the past, they've got a rough out. The golf course doesn't change much, but the playing conditions do. And when the ground gets firm and fast and bouncy, then you've really got to start thinking about, okay, does this need to be played through the air or on the ground? And for me, golf's much more interesting when you involve what the ball does on the ground. When you're playing with to and from soft fairways to soft greens, then it's a different game altogether. It's not the game I grew up playing.
Right.
You know,
Right.
if you get a 15, 20 mile an hour winds and the flags are moving a little bit, that's normal. That's not a wild day. that's a standard day. And if you get a bad bounce, what's a bad bounce? One that goes a little bit left or a little bit right. It might be a surprising bounce, might not be what you expected, but just because it's goes a little bit left or a little bit right, doesn't mean to say it's bad. That's the way it is.
That's
No one
golf.
said it was supposed to be fair.
Right.
You've got to
Right.
deal with it.
Right.
And you can actually, if you look at the game, the short game, especially through the eyes of a child, I've coached a few kids over the years who you get them on the short game area and they say, so could I actually use that slope to bring my ball back towards the hole? Yeah, absolutely. Let's try it. Let's find out. Whereas
Wow.
we see slopes as adults as something that's going to take the ball away from the hole. It's going to be a defense. It's going to defend the hole. You can actually flip it on its head and say, no, actually, I'm going to use the contours. It might I might perhaps have to use a little chip and run with an 8 iron rather than trying to flop it all the way up to the hole with the lob wedge. If you don't try these shots, you'll never master them. That's one thing
It's
for
true.
sure. It's one thing I can
Yeah.
tell you for sure.
I'm going to take another time out and we'll be back right after this. Another thing that I like to think about when someone is like, oh, I knew I was going to make that mistake. I knew I was going to one of the things I throw out there is, hey, take a mental mulligan. Doesn't count
Yeah,
on your scorecard if you step away from the ball and
yeah,
reset your mind and start
hmm
again and just block
yeah,
that out.
yeah, yeah. We're big on asking questions. I know the podcast you did with Carl recently was about asking questions.
Right.
And one we always try to get people to ask themselves, or one or two actually, is it possible you could play a good shot here? Yes, always. Until you personally, as the golfer, shut yourself down to what is possible. When you've decided it's impossible, guess what? It's become impossible. But you've made that decision before you even take the club out of the bag. So not helpful. Another question we like people to ask is, what's a really good shot look like? Because unless you have a very clear intention for what you want the ball to do, then if you don't have a clear picture of what that shot looks like, how can you possibly perform or that task? How can you play that shot? It's not until I hit that one too far to the left. Well, what was your intention? What do you mean? Well, I mean, what was your intention? It's not a trick question. What did you intend to do with that golf ball? Well, I was trying to get it in the hole. Right, okay. And how were you going to do that? What was it going to fly high or low? I don't know. It was just going to go in the hole. Right, okay. Just think about that for a second. So, unless you have clarity of intention, your brain doesn't know what signals to send to your body, basically. But what I've discovered over the years is that if I ask a player, okay, what does this shot look like? Describe it to me in great detail. The clearer that description of the shot is, the clearer the visualization of that shot becomes, and the clearer the motor pattern is formed in your mind, which is then sent to your hands, arms, whatever, for you to enable you or not allow you to then execute that shot. So without that intention of or clarity of intention, without the intention to hit a specific shot in the first place, something will happen.
I'll tell you
But
that the only the two things that stand out most to me when I got my only hole in one
mm-hmm.
back in 2009, because
Applause, applause.
that's what my PJ. Thank you very much. But the two things that I remember, one is something that has now become a very strict rule for me, and that is Never pee against a tree with your back to the tee box on a par 3.
Okay.
Because while I hit my hole in one, my buddy was peeing and he missed the whole thing. So it's like you missed it? Are you kidding? He goes, I had to go to the bathroom. It's like you never on a par 3, you never pee. All right, that's my first
No.
thing that I remember. The second thing
Okay.
that I
I'll bear that in
remember,
mind.
yeah, the second thing that is very, very clear to me that I remember more than the ball, because I don't know if I even saw it go in the hole, is I went,
Hmm.
okay, this is like a 125-yard par 3, wide green, not very deep, flags in the middle,
Hmm.
but you're going to have to hit a nice, soft, high shot and let it land softly and then bounce up. And that's
Yep.
exactly what I did. I called it the way I saw it should go, and it
Isn't
did.
that enormously rewarding when you decide on the shot you're going to play? You can see it. You can almost sense it. I use TrackMan for various things. Basically, I use it as it was designed to be used. It's a measuring device.
Right.
People say, "Oh, TrackMan ruined such and such." TrackMan never ruined anyone. The person using TrackMan was the guilty party. That machine does not have an opinion.
Right.
Doesn't offer much advice. Doesn't offer any advice. It doesn't have a voice.
Just
But I
data.
use it for visualization. I love using the shot tracker tool. So again, I was doing that with someone this morning. I asked him what a good shot looked like, and then I pulled up one of his best shots, and I said, "Does a good shot look like that?" He said, "Yeah, yeah, but I'm not sure he could hit that shot." I said, "Well, it's from your shot library, so I know we can. I know you definitely
You've
can."
already done it.
Yeah,
Right.
you've already done it. He said, "Oh yeah, yeah, I love watching golf on TV. I love watching the shot tracker." I said, "Okay, would it be helpful if you could see that shot tracker before you played your shot?" He said, "Yeah, because it's giving me a pathway to hit that." I said, right, okay. So when you ask yourself the question, what's a really good shot with a 6 iron, for example, look like? That's what it looks like right there. So if you can see that shot tracker, you can play that in your mind's eye before you hit the shot, then might that become a little easier? He said, yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what's a really good shot look like?
Hmm.
Well, it looks like the one you just pointed to on the screen. Okay, is it possible you could play that shot for me? Absolutely. Watch this. So as soon as he said, watch this, I knew his mindset had changed.
Right. Obviously.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
because you and I both know a lot of golfers, perhaps a majority of golfers, spend the majority of their time trying not to hit bad shots.
Right. They play out of fear.
Yeah, fear of what?
Fear of screwing up.
Yeah,
Right.
what's the thing that gets in the way there? Ego,
Of course.
basically. So it's the hardest thing to do, but if you can leave your ego in the parking lot before you head out onto the first tee, because people think, oh, I don't want anyone to think ill of me. I don't want people judging me. Trust me, they're not judging you. They're far too concerned about what you think about them and their game to even worry about thinking, caring anything about your game. So
It's
yeah,
so
we
true.
do tend to. Yeah, when your ego's on the line, then you're never going to play freely.
Right.
We all have
Never.
egos. Some are bigger than others, for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
But yeah, you can't play. Golf's a game. It's supposed to be fun. If you ask any one of your playing partners why they play golf, they'll tell you, "Oh, I love being outdoors. I love the camaraderie. Just being out in nature is fantastic." And they'll reel off 6 or 7 valid reasons for playing the game. But then, as soon as they hit a bad shot, it's all gone, all forgotten
All
about.
gone. Yep.
Yeah,
Everything.
yeah. We all love the feeling of a well-struck shot. We all love the sound of the ball falling in the hole. We hit it out the middle of the putter, and we hole a putt from 12, 15 feet.
And we
Fantastic.
all love the sound of a great strike.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, nothing
Absolutely.
like it.
Yeah. It's quite. You can't describe that to anyone who's never played golf and never experienced that. They just look as if you're mad, which I guess is understandable to a degree because we must be mad to play this game. But it's not a prerequisite, but it does help.
Does the
But yeah,
size of our ego does the size of our ego change based on our competition?
I don't think it's okay. I'm going to give you an example. It's a very
Great.
good question. Anytime someone says that's a brilliant question, it's because the person you've asked is struggling for an answer. Um,
Oh, is that what I've been doing all this time? Thank you.
I had an instance a few weeks ago with a guy who I've known for a long time. I've known socially, known professionally, and he said, do you think I take my golf too seriously, Gary?" And I said, "No, I think you take yourself too seriously."
Wow.
Oh, and it was a bit of a punch to the solar plexus. He wasn't quite expecting that. And he kind of looked at the ground and he looked up at me and he looked me straight in the eye and said, "Good observation. Yeah, it's very true." He said, "I don't take the game." I said, "I don't even think about the game as a game. It's all about me." I said, "Right, okay, how about
That's
you play
heavy.
the game as it was intended to be played, as a game? It's supposed to be fun. This is your leisure time. No one is holding a gun to your head and dragging you here against your will. You are choosing to do this. You are paying to do this. And yet you're beating yourself up every time you play. Where's the fun in that?" So hopefully, and I think it got through to him, he is now playing for different reasons. He's actually playing for enjoyment, to get away from work, to switch off from the world he lives in for a few hours a week. And he's starting to enjoy it again.
That's
And he's starting
great.
to play the game as a game. And if it
Hmm.
doesn't work out every single time, it doesn't work out. No one lost a limb, no one lost an eye, you know, no one got
Yeah,
hurt.
I said to someone the other day, you know what they call that? And he went, what? I said, golf.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. One more timeout. We're going to find out what's happening on Golf Smarter Mulligans this week, and we'll be right back. We talked about how amateurs can pound away 10,000 balls and just hitting
Sure.
ball after ball and not getting any feedback or anything. But from your perspective, from your experience, from your history, can amateurs really change their swings? Can they really make major adjustments? Or is their, because their body type, their size, their fitness, their, not, and, the type of practice that they do of just pounding ball after ball, can an amateur really, because we know that professionals, they're out there 8 hours a day, 9 days a
Yeah.
week, and this is all they're doing and thinking about and getting constant feedback on what they're doing,
Yeah.
whether it be TrackMan, Rapsodo, the portable monitors.
Sure.
They're getting all this feedback, but amateurs are just like, oh, that ball looked good. Oh, that one didn't
Yeah.
look as good. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
can we change, or do we have to just live with what we have?
I am not a big believer in deconstruction and reconstruction of golf swings. From what I have read and from what I have heard, having spoken to various people who are involved in physiotherapy, involved in neuroscience, all sorts of different fields outside of golf as well as within golf, once you get to the age of 25, it's actually quite difficult to change a motor pattern.
Wow,
Yeah. So
that's encouraging.
if you and I, Fred, decided we were going to learn how to walk differently, we would probably manage it for about the first 10 yards and then revert back to the way we've always walked. So you and I both try to make swing changes over the years at certain points in our lives, yes? That's difficult, very difficult. And when you feel you've made a move that's changed a foot and you look at it on a video and it doesn't look any different, it could be mind-blowingly frustrating. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't be trying to improve our techniques, sure, but it's not that straightforward. I think that the easiest way to make improvements is to understand how your brain works and understand that your brain is the control center for every movement you make, whether that's picking up a cup of coffee, whether it's opening a door with a key, whether it's turning the steering wheel in your car or hitting a pitch over a bunker. All these movements are organized in our minds before. And if our mind is super busy with don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, or if I miss this, if I go in the bunker, last time I went in a bunker, it didn't get out, it took me 3 to get out, then a 3 putted, so I was looking at making 4 and ended up making 8. Then I was 4 over par after 2 holes, and then I knew my handicap was going to go up, and then, oh, my world's going to end. Ultimately, what that is doing, which I'm learning about at the moment, is brainwave activity is just going nuts. So when your brainwave activity is just spiking and going absolutely crazy, our ability to perform a task is at about 5% of our potential. But when our brainwaves are not, they're less active, shall we say, when they're not jumping around all over the place, that potential to perform a task goes up from 5% to 80%. Yeah. And this is something I'm learning about at the moment, and it's absolutely fascinating. And this is lots and lots of research and analysis has been done. So when we get angry and anxious, we're really not doing ourselves any favors. Now we kind of know that, but to have it backed up scientifically is quite astonishing. And the levels of performance or potential performance to go from 5%, like a 1 in 20 chance, to 4 out of 5 chance, that's quite remarkable. So
Right.
learning ways to kind of bring your brainwave activity down to a very functional level is hugely, hugely important. But when you've got all these crazy thoughts running through your head, as I say, I'm going to chunk this in the bunker, and I never get out the first time. I always take at least 2 or 3 shots out of the bunker, and then last time I did this, I knifed it over the back of the green, then I duffed a chip, and I just wanted the ground to open up and swallow me. But all these things are happening. You can't possibly be paying attention to the task in hand because your mind's racing, going in all sorts of different directions. And as the neuron, the what's the word I'm looking for? The neural pathways from your brain down to the nerve endings in your hands, when they're blocked, it's like trying to go down a freeway where there's 5 lanes and it's rush hour. There's just way too much going on. You can't go anywhere. You can't move. So the clearer we can keep our thoughts, and the simpler we can keep our thoughts, and really think about any short game shot as just a task to be performed. Like making a cup of coffee, like cleaning your shoes, like I don't know, doing whatever, sending an email. It's just a task. It's not any more complex than that. We can make it as complex or as simple as we like. It's ours to choose. It's our decision to be made. So yeah, choose wisely.
Yeah, yeah. We talked about the baseball player who has his tool, his bat,
Sure.
and basically he's going to swing other than like a bunt, but he's going to
Yeah.
swing the baseball bat the same way every time. He'll just get different results. But the
Yeah.
thing that I think that so many of us don't pay attention to are the variety of shots that you can make with every single club. I had a shot the other day that it was I had to get under trees. I was 135 yards out. I didn't have enough distance behind the tree to get over it with the club that I would use at that distance. So I pulled out less lofted club, a higher numbered
Yeah.
club, and I practice on the driving range. How far can I hit that if I just let it run low and stay under the tree and see what I
Yeah.
can do? And I I hit a great shot that came up just short of the green. I was really happy with the shot. The direction was right. It was, a front flag anyway, so I was okay. Chip and a putt, and it went in. But the amount of time that I try to practice different shots
Mm.
with each club or
And
with
it's fun.
specific clubs, it gets definitely entertaining. Definitely
Yeah.
much more entertaining.
Yeah. I think that the biggest difference between amateurs and professionals, or one of the biggest differences for sure, if you ask an amateur golfer how far they hit a 7 iron, they will give you, or I mean, a specific number of how far they've hit their best ever 7 iron.
Right.
And they'll say, whatever, let's call it 160 yards, whatever, just as a number. You ask a professional the same question, he will probably come back with an answer that you're not expecting, and he'll say, well, it depends.
Right. What's the situation?
Depends on the shot I'm trying to hit. Am I trying to hit it high? Are you talking about a high draw, a low fade? What shot are you talking about? So top players will talk about shots rather than numbers.
Right. Right.
And
We had a
golf's all
great
about creating
conversation.
different shots.
Right. I
Every
had
shot
great
is different.
conversation with
As we said at the very outset, every shot is unique.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Uh, I
you
was going to
you
say
mean
that
you
we've had
you
a
love
past
going to the range, going to the
conversation.
chipping area, the short game area, and creating different shots, don't you? Because it's very satisfying. It's very rewarding. You know, I think I may have some form of ADHD, because if I stand on the range for any more than about 10 or 15 minutes trying to hit the same shot, I'm going to get bored, and my mind's going to wander. So my
Absolutely.
attention span's not long enough to keep me engaged, and I'm going to start doing stupid things if I try to hit the same shot to the same target from the same place with the same club time after time after time. So I like to mix it up a little bit. I like to play 9 holes on the range, because
Really.
that's much more like playing golf. Plus, by the time once you've had a little bit of a warm up, play 9 holes, peg up a driver, hit a driver as if you're playing the first hole, and then figure out, if you hit it well, what does that leave you for your second shot on your course on the first hole? Is it a 6 iron? Where's the flag? Oh, the flag's back right. Okay, so where's my target now? So you actually get into playing mode straight away, and you stop having all these crazy swing thoughts that are just getting in the way. The biggest benefit of that, from doing that, is that by the time you get to the first tee, you're not going from one environment to another, driving range golf to golf course golf. You're already in playing mode. So you step on the first tee and you're already in a bit of a rhythm of playing golf.
Right. We have
Got to
a
be helped.
driving range. We have a driving range locally here that has the Top Golf Top Tracer technology
Perfect.
at each hitting
Perfect.
bay,
Yeah.
and it allows you to pick a course and play the course. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not putting on it, but better than putting, they give you some short game shots, and as close as you can get to the pin on those short game shots, that's going to be whether it's a birdie, par, or bogey,
Yeah.
right? Which is a
Yeah. We've had
phenomenal
it
way to
installed at Archerfield
focus
at
on
our
it.
place, and it's brilliant. It's fantastic. It's great technology. It's
Yeah.
great fun, because you can play shots, which is what you have to do in the golf course every time. No 2 days are the same. No 2 rounds of golf are the same. No two shots are the
Well,
same.
okay, I want to go back to your book for just a second in saying that, I mean, obviously I'm not going to dig into it because we're having such an amazing conversation here. But the thing I want to recommend about this book is that it's not just you and um, and Carl
No.
talking.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
each have your own approach on this, but then you bring
Yeah.
in other people in this
Yes.
book to
Yeah.
give their perspective on things, and then you incorporate it into your chapters. Tell me more
Hmm.
about how you were able to get people to contribute.
Uh, Called in a few favors, I guess. No, we've both been around the game for a long time, and we know a lot of people. I guess we've made friends with a lot of people in the industry, and it's amazing. Anyone in all three books, anyone we've asked to contribute something as a guest, they've all said, yeah, please tell me what you need. How many words do you want? When do you need it by? mean,
Wow.
Bob Vokey, we thought, there weren't many people ahead of Bob Vokey in the list if you're going to write a short game book to write the forward for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we approached him and we had a couple of real lengthy, great chats with him, I've met Bob a couple of times at tournaments over the years.
Hmm.
Not that he would remember, but I certainly remember meeting him and Roger Cleveland, who I spent time with recently over in Archfield as well. But to go back to Mr. Vokey, he was so open and accommodating and helpful and keen to share his thoughts and his wisdom. And it was amazing. He said, what you have to remember, though, guys, is I don't write very well. He said, I can tell a great story and I can design wedges and I can grind away the sole. I can do this and I can do that. He said, I'm not very good at writing. I said, tell you what, Bob, don't you worry. We'll have a couple of Zoom calls. We'll record everything. I'll write something up for you. I'll send it over for your approval. If there's anything you do or don't like, just let me know. I can change it, I can amend it, and I'll send it straight back until you're happy with it. And we did that a couple of times. And when we got the final version together, he said, God, you've made me sound really clever here. No, you did not need any help from us. You've done that on your own. But
Right.
yeah,
These are
he was
your
great
words.
and just such a nice man and just open to share,
Yeah.
as we
Yeah.
find so many people have been.
And I just love that you put it in between every one of your chapters. And clearly, there are chapters that are yours,
Hmm.
and there are chapters that are Carl's.
Hmm.
And that's
I,
why
I,
I'm so appreciative of having both of you on the show separately, because I know the conversation, if we all three got together, would just be us talking, each of us talking nonstop.
yeah, exactly. It could go on for quite some time, really, couldn't it? As they have done in the past. Not that that's a bad thing,
No,
but yeah, you do have time constraints, I'm sure. So yeah, no,
not really.
we've been very fortunate. We had a good friend of mine from I first played golf with back in the 80s, Paul Laurie. He's an Open champion. He wrote the foreword for the Lost Art of Putting. Rudy Duran, who I mentioned earlier, Tiger's first ever golf coach, he did the foreword for the second book. And we've had Mr. Vokey doing the short game book. Just we've had other guest contributors who we must have had, I think, about 5 or 6 in each book. And what we did when we finished the third book, we created I think I've got a little kind of box set cover, the Lost
Right.
Art of Golf collection. So all our guest contributors received one of them in the mail once we'd
That's nice.
got them all together, just as a thank you. And I would have to say, to a person, they all sent either Carl or Carl and I a message to say thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Thanks for allowing me to be part of your books.
Is the 3 book box set that you just showed us, is that
Yeah,
available to purchase as
it
well?
is. Yeah, it is.
Oh,
Yeah,
highly recommend that. Highly
yeah,
recommend. That's
yeah.
great.
So do
We'll
I.
put a link in
Strangely
the
enough.
show notes. Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes for the books available on Amazon. Gary, it's so much fun to talk to you because I don't have to prepare much of anything except a question. And then we can
Yeah,
easily get up to an hour together. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise
my
with us
pleasure.
today.
And thank you for some great questions. Because you can't give good answers if you don't have good questions. Simple as that. Just like golf, if you ask good questions on the golf course, you might just come up with some good answers.